Welcome back, everyone. After a very long hiatus, we are back. We are, as usual, two dudes talking 80s. If you forgot, I'm John. That's my partner in crime, Lewis.
Hello.
And man, we've had a whole bunch of issues trying to do this. We've had illnesses, we've had work schedules, we've had holidays, we've had issues with weather and you not having power. It's been pretty crazy.
But we're persisting.
We're persistent.
We are persisting, much to the chagrin of our three fans.
Well, hopefully those three people missed us. Who knows? So this is going to be a fun one, because everyone always talks about, in the '80s there were a lot of super groups, right? You had people like the Power Station and a whole bunch of other bands that I can't think of right now.
Bad English.
Bad English, good one, good call. White Snake. So we decided we'd do something on our own here and come up with our own perfect or dream '80s heavy metal hard rock band. So we're going to give this one a go and talk about who we would put together in our dream band. So Lewis, why don't you go ahead and lead us off? We're going to ask you to give a little parameters here. We're going to look for a vocalist, two guitar players, a bass player, keyboardist, and drums. All right, so those are the parameters. Something tells me Lewis will screw it up or go rogue on me. And God, he's already wearing a Dio shirt, so who knows who he's going to pick for a singer. But why don't you lead us off with your first guitar player?
Okay. And just to let you know, I definitely bent the rules a little bit. I went with two singers. I thought, if this is going to be my dream band, I am definitely going to take a little bit of creative licensing here. So let's see. So the first guitar player for the band would be Nuno Bettencourt. And I had a really hard time, man, trying to put all of the musicians together and then thinking I like totally overanalyze this, like which ones would have ego clashes, which ones had sort of musical styles that were similar, which ones had styles that were different but might complement each other. I really sort of had a hard time with this, and I actually came up with two bands, but I'm obviously only going with the one. So yeah, so the first guitar player would be Nuno Bettencourt, of course, of Extreme. Had more, I think, success maybe in the 90s, but they technically started in the 80s. So I am going on that technicality.
All right, very very interesting pick. I kind of took it from a different perspective. I put together who I kind of like what you did, or maybe you didn't do, but I put together who I thought would play really well together and kind of had similar styles in my dream band. So of course my first guitar player is of course Randy Rhoads. Um, I just love the melody, the classical style. Just could play anything, and you can kind of tell the direction of the band I'm going to be going with if he's going to be my guitar player. Plus, he was my favorite guitarist of all time, so that seemed like a pretty straightforward pick.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, I really overanalyzed everything, man. Again, I'll explain the picks as I go through them. And yeah, Dio was actually not going to be my vocalist.
Wow.
Uh,
All right. Well, hold on before you go on, because I have a little direction for you because I got to keep you from going too rogue. Because the next one we had is going to be keyboards, unless you want to
okay.
add something else.
No, I was just automatically assuming we'd go on to the second guitar player, but I am totally good with going on with keyboards.
Let's go with keyboards. So, as a keyboardist yourself and
All
a
right.
guitar player, is there a keyboardist with the last name of Betancourt that you chose?
Nuno actually plays keyboards, but
Oh, Jesus. So you have
he
a Betancourt band. That would be pretty straightforward.
it wasn't the keyboardist from Anger, wasn't his last name Bettencourt
The other guitar player was Bittencourt.
or Bittencourt? Okay, all
Yeah.
right. So yeah, so the keyboardist that I went with, again on a technicality, because they were probably more famous in the 90s and the 80s, but they did start in the 80s. So it's the keyboardist from Dream Theater, Kevin Moore. And I just think he's a phenomenal keyboard player, but not only that, he comes up with really, really tasty riffs, right? Really original things that I really have always admired, and I think Dream Theater's new keyboard player, what is it, Jordan
Jordan Rudess.
Rudess, is he's super awesome. He's super awesome, and not to diss him in any way, shape, or form. He's incredible. There is something, I don't know, more tangible. I can't even describe it, but there's something super creative about Kevin Moore's energy that I really miss, and I think he's awesome, just absolutely awesome.
He actually was. I was really contemplating using him as well, but again, I thought of him more of the '90s than the '80s, even though they had "When Dream and Day Unite." By the way, you're being very Italian today with your hands. It must be the Dio shirt. But I did consider him. He is a great keyboard player, and you're right. Jordan Rudess is amazing, amazing keyboardist. You can't take anything away from that guy. Technically, I would say he's a much better keyboard player than Kevin Moore, but he had that certain intangible that I don't know what it is. But I've been listening to some old Dream Theater with him lately, and yeah, I miss whatever he brought to the band. I think it's sorely missed. So I think that's a great call. But I kind of went. You like I said, you can kind of see where my band's going. I chose Don Airy.
Excellent.
And, Don Airy, he played obviously with Randy Rhoads, played with Rainbow, Ozzy, obviously. He's now in Deep Purple, Michael Schenker group. And this was a kind of a hard one for me. Like I said, I thought about Kevin Moore. I also, kind of was thinking of the multi-instrumentalist. I kind of thought about Neil Carter from UFO or Paul Raymond, who I love both of them as well. But ultimately, I kind of wanted to go with the classic heavy metal band that's very influenced by classical music. And I thought, who better than Don Airy? So that's where I went.
Don Airy's a great pick, man. He's a phenomenal keyboard player. I loved him in Ozzy. I loved him in Rainbow, and really, really good pick. You can't go wrong with Don Airy
You
at
can't.
all.
He's a classic. So who you got on the four string or maybe eight string? Who knows?
Let's see. Who did I go with? Again, had a lot of folks that were contenders, but here I go with my Italianism again. The one that actually fit the most for the genre that I was going with this band was Marcel Jacob from Yngwie Malmsteen's Rising
Wow.
Force. I always thought he was a great bass player, and unfortunately, he sort of left us a little early. He ended up committing suicide. I think he had some health issues and whatnot, and it was just too much for him to endure. And I think that's sort of what contributed to his deciding to commit suicide. But I thought he was a great bass player, very neoclassical, obviously, to be playing with Yngwie, and yeah, I just dug him.
Wow, that's a very interesting pick. I had a hard time with there's so many great bass players in the 80s. I was thinking about Billy Sheehan, obviously, and then I was thinking about Jason Newsted. Cliff Burton was another one that I was considering, but ultimately I have to go with the God, and I had to go with Steve Harris.
Nice.
I think Steve can, again, would he fit this band? I think so. And he could write. He likes the longer songs I thought would fit in very well. And I have no doubt that he would fit in. And yeah, so Mr. Steve Harris. Plus, he's
Awesome.
got the amazing stage presence. So, you can count on him for that. All right. Who do you have behind the kit?
Behind the kit, I went with my favorite drummer, and this again, he sort of I came up with two bands, and he was in both of the bands. I love this dude, and he unfortunately left us, I think, in the late 80s, although he played in the 70s as well with a lot of bands that I was into. I'm talking about Mr. Cozy Powell, and he played with Rainbow. He played with Emerson, Lake and Powell, and um, God, what other bands did he play with? He played with a lot of really great bands.
He did.
Super distinctive drummer, in my opinion. And what really turned me on to him was when he did the drumming for, I think it was Rainbow Rising, that whole intro that he does. Just like love it, just love it, and love the sound of his drums, love his style. Great drummer.
Now, this one was hard for me. Originally, I was going to go with Kirk Arrington, who was the drummer for Metal Church. And my God, talk about an underrated drummer that doesn't get a nearly enough praise. I think his drumming, especially on the first Metal Church album, is just fantastic. But then I didn't think he quite fit the bill for what I was looking for. I also thought about, there's so many great drummers that I was considering. I was also thinking about Charlie Benante from Anthrax because I think he's another one that just does not get enough credit. But obviously, he's on the more thrashier side. Uh,
Right.
but I've heard him filling in for Vinnie Paul on Pantera right now, and he's doing that really well too. So great drummer, very underrated. But for this band, I thought the perfect pick was Scott Rockenfeld of Queensryche.
Oh, all right.
And it's one of those things I've always enjoyed his drumming, and but being a guitar player and everything, I kind of paid more attention to the drumming and of course the vocals. But I think it was just right before he left the band, I saw them perform, and I just was in awe of how great of a drummer he was, even as he got older, and was still way up to par. And I just kind of, for whatever reason, that one particular night that I saw them, I just kind of marveled at his playing, his drumming, and how well he fit the band. And I thought, for what I was trying to do, that guy would be the perfect fit for a drummer.
Excellent, man. No, that's a good pick. And yeah, he is a great drummer. And I've always enjoyed all of his drumming on the Queensryche stuff. So very cool.
Yeah. All right. So you get to pick your second guitar player now.
My second guitar player. Let's see. I went with somebody that doesn't really fit too well with the band, but I thought would be a good compliment, and it would be really interesting to see what these two guitar players would come up with between Nuno Bettencourt and Eddie Van Halen.
Ah,
So I pictured it, right. I sat there as it would be really cool to listen to one solo after the other, and I know that Nuno's an Eddie fan, right? I mean, what guitarist really isn't? I just thought it would be neat. It would be an interesting pairing.
and I think their styles would mesh. I don't know about the egos, but I think their styles would mesh because Nuno had a lot of Eddie Van Halen, or has a lot of Eddie Van Halen in his influences. You can tell. The one I would have been really curious to hear is Eddie Van Halen and Vito Bratta from White
That would have been a
Lion.
good one.
That
I
would have
thought about
that,
that.
that would have been really interesting to hear. Again, another person who doesn't get nearly the credit, but I think that would be incredibly interesting. But I think their styles would fit. Again, with the egos, probably not. But that's why it's a dream pairing. I kind of kept with for me, for my second guitar player, I kept with who would fit that kind of neoclassical, heavy classic heavy metal style that I love so much. And like Randy Rhoads, this person left us way too early, and that's Chris Oliva from Sabotage.
Good pick.
And somebody else who doesn't get nearly the recognition he should. Just an amazing guitar player, amazing songwriter. Um, he has obviously some of the Van Halen tricks, but just beautiful guitar playing. Everything that he did just really amazed me. And my band Tramontaine obviously had the opportunity to perform with Sabotage, and it's one of those things I look back on. It was kind of stupid because I used to look at it as almost a competitive thing. Like if we're playing with you, playing a show with you, that we have to be better and we can't be friends. And it was kind of dumb. But the following year, I think a year and a half later, I saw Sabotage at the Stone, and after the show, I asked if the one of the roadies if he'd hand me one of the set lists, and he did. And Chris Oliva came up, and I was like, "Hey, Chris, could you sign this for me, please?" And he was like, "Yeah, sure, absolutely." And we talked for a little bit. Super nice guy. And then I felt really bad because the new singer, I think it was Zach Stevens, was like, "Hey, you want me to sign it too?" And I felt like going, "No, not really. just wanted Chris to sign it, and I felt bad, like, yeah, sure, go ahead and sign it. So he signed it as well. But I still have that set list, and I still have Chris Oliva's signature. But what a fantastic guitar player, and to be able to see him perform live and to perform on a show with him was a very incredible experience, very humbling because he blew me completely out of the water. But man, what a talent! And sad to see that he died at such an early age. Because you look at what happened now. Basically, right? Trans Siberian Orchestra is so famous and so popular, playing arenas, and Sabotage never really got to that point. But it's essentially the same music, and that kills me that he didn't get to have that experience. Now, maybe Trans Siberian Orchestra never would have ever happened if Chris had lived and they continued with Sabotage. But it's one of those what if things that you always wonder about how that would have played out. Um, just to see him get that recognition though and to play arenas, he certainly deserved that, and it's a shame he never got to. I mean, at least in terms of a headlining capacity.
Right. Yeah, very good pick. You're absolutely right. Very underrated. And I always thought he was pretty original, right? He didn't sound like anybody else. And I always enjoyed his guitar playing. It is unfortunate that he left us so soon. Would have
Yeah.
been interesting to see what he could have done had he had a longer life.
Yeah, and again, I think him and Randy Rhodes probably wouldn't have worked out because they both filled a lot of space. But my God, imagine the amount of riffs that would have come out of their sessions would have been mind blowing.
For sure.
All right, so we're ending now. We have our dream band has to have a singer. Apparently, your band has to have two. So why don't you go ahead with your first one?
All right. Well, my first one would be Kip Winger. And I just love the sound of his voice. I've always thought he's got an amazing range, and just the quality of the tonal quality of his voice I've always really enjoyed. So again, sort of a not a great fit. What you think is he sort of did more of the glam metal, the poppy stuff. So from that perspective, maybe it wouldn't work so much, but I do think his voice would be a fit. And for this kind of music, it would have been really neat to see something like that.
I think his voice would have fit because Nuno and you know Eddie Van Halen wrote in a similar style to what Van Halen. They had the Van Halen thing. Red Beach kind of had that Van Halen thing, particularly the tapping. So I think it would have worked out really well, and I think it would have definitely fit. But that would be very interesting to hear. You didn't
Yeah.
want him on bass, though, huh? You couldn't give them both slots.
No, no, no. I couldn't give him both. He would be just the singer.
Just the singer. All right. Mine's gonna be very interesting, and this is probably the one I had the hardest time with because there's so many great singers, and you have the obvious choices, the Dios, the Bruce Dickinsons, the Jeff Tates, and then you have people that don't get mentioned nearly enough, like Eric A.K. from Flotsam and Jetsam is one that comes to mind. Midnight from Crimson Glory, who had an amazing voice. There's so many fantastic singers, but man, I would have loved to have. This is another one that left us way too soon, and I would love to have heard him with this band, and that's Carl Albert. And Carl Albert from Vicious Rumors,
Oh.
Carl Albert from Ruffians, Carl Albert from Villain. Just a great performer, great singer. He could do Dio type stuff. He could do Jeff Tate type stuff. Was a really great frontman. I'll never forget. We were actually doing our very first demo, and we couldn't find a singer, so we had reached out to him, or I had reached out to him, and I asked if he would be willing to do the vocals for our first demo, and we'd pay him as a studio musician. And he had agreed to do it and said this is what it would be, and blah blah blah. And we had worked it all out. Never came to fruition. If he heard that first demo, he's probably like, "Yeah, pass. There's no way I'm saving this thing." he wasn't
Keep it to
wrong.
yourself.
Oh,
Nah,
it was
you guys were
bad.
good, man. Ah.
No, that first demo was bad though. It was bad. Um, but I'll never forget, which was good and at the same time sad. Um, we went to talk to him, and Vicious Rumors had played a show at the Omni, and he was amazing, amazing. And after the show, I went to talk to him. That dude was so hammered, and I guess he performed like that, which just blew my mind that a guy could be that out of it and perform the way he just did. Like I said, it was kind of sad. It's a waste of his talents, but kind of incredible at the same time too. Like I've never seen anybody perform like that. And I mean, we saw him almost immediately after the show, so it wasn't like he had an hour backstage to get drunk or anything. He came off stage and he was already hammered. But man,
Wow.
what a performer and what a voice. And we lost him way too early too. And it's kind of sad. I look at my list of the six people, and three of them, died way too early, way too early. But I think his voice would fit in with anything they wanted to write, and he could do it. You gave him a ballad, he could do it. You could give him the heaviest of metal, he could do it. Just a phenomenal talent, and I think he would be the perfect frontman for this band.
Very cool, man. I don't think I have actually ever heard his voice, but it sounds like that he was very, very versatile, and that's something that always, works in spades towards your favor as a vocalist. So, very, very cool. I'll have to go and seek him out. I don't think I've actually ever listened to Vicious Rumors.
Um, Not a big fan of theirs, but I was always a fan of his.
Hmm.
And the Ruffians too. The Ruffians had an EP with him, and I have that. Used to have that on vinyl. I now have it on CD, but he sang so fantastic on that. And on that one, he sounded more like Jeff Tate. With Vicious Rumors, he sounded a little bit more like Ronnie James Dio.
Hmm.
Didn't do quite. I mean, he still did some high notes, but it was a little bit more a lower register for the most part. But what a vocalist. I'll send you some stuff and you'll be like, wow, this dude was legit.
Cool, man. Yeah, I'll definitely want to listen to that.
So you have two vocalists?
I've got two vocalists, man. I just pictured like them switching off tracks or switching off, verses and stuff, and I thought that would be really neat. The second vocalist is a vocalist I've always enjoyed. I never really gave him the credit though that he deserved until a little bit later on in life when I started to listen to some of his solo stuff. And this is a gentleman that actually, John, that you're going to go with me to see when I'm out there to visit. It's Mr. Jeff Scott Soto. And I just thought it would be really neat to hear Kip and Jeff sort of switch off, do harmonies together. And again, Jeff's voice is really, really great. I loved him with Rising Force. Loved him even more with his solo stuff because you can see a little bit more diversity in his voice and how he can make it switch, from growling to sort of being sweet. Loved him when he did the vocals on some of the tracks on the movie Rockstar. So, and he's always busy, man. He's got like a bazillion projects going on at the same time. So, total admiration for the guy. Love the guy's voice, and yeah, that's my pick.
And you'll get to meet him at the end of this month.
That'll be awesome. That'll be so cool.
He's a really good guy too. He's a really good guy. So yeah, I think that's an excellent pick. He's very versatile. By the way, did you see the thing? I guess they have a drummer for the show we're going to see. Jonathan Mover is
Oh,
going to be
hadn't.
performing with them. Yeah.
Nice.
So yeah, it's going to be a pretty great show. But yeah, getting back to Jeff Scott Soto, it's funny because you sent me. I can't remember the name of it now. What was the band? Was it
Wet.
Wet? And I listened to that, and there's a lot. Even now, he sings really great. I saw him perform recently. I'll see him perform again, and he just the versatility of his voice. The fact that he was even in Journey, which you failed to mention, and I've listened to what he did with Journey, and it's like, wow. I wouldn't have expected he could fill in for Steve Perry, and it's debatable whether anyone could, but I thought he did a very admirable job, and it was a lot of fun to listen to him doing the Journey songs. And when I saw him with, Jason Bieler, they were doing everything from, my God, to Journey, the Carpenters, Saigon Kick, um, and they did it all really well, and it just showed the versatility of his voice. So that's an excellent pick. And it is kind of funny because there is a kind of a precedent for that, right? A couple years back, and actually this year I'll see him again. Halloween, um, they called it Pumpkins United, where some of the members of Halloween during their most famous or successful period joined forces with the band that was existing as it was today or at the time, and they got back together, made an album, and toured. And so they had two lead vocalists, and they would switch off and do different songs and everything. And it was really a great show. And I'll see them again. I think in June of this year. I have tickets to see them in Hammerfall. So I'll be seeing
Superb.
Halloween again. So I'll see exactly what I saw a couple years back. I think it was like 2019, the Pumpkins United tour. So wimpy unprecedented.
Awesome, man. Awesome.
All right. Well, anything else you want to add? You want to throw on a second keyboard player or anything? Another bassist?
No second keyboard. I do want to make one mention that Dio is obviously one of my favorite vocalists. I was always hoping that he and Ingve would get together and do something. They actually did a cover of, I think, Dream On by Aerosmith, but it's so disappointing.
Really? I didn't even know that one.
Yeah, yeah, I heard it and it's like, oh man, it just doesn't work in my opinion, man. Maybe other people like it, but I always wish that they had done it. I always wish that Dio had sung some of Ingve's stuff. I always thought that would be so awesome.
Huh. Yeah, that would it almost seemed like it would have been natural, right? But again, I think that would have exploded pretty quickly. But maybe if you would have got one album, one tour out of it, I think that would have been pretty amazing. Or, maybe if they did something, an album together and then they performed together where like Ingve started, they played Dio, and then, they came together for like, a few songs at the end of the night or something. I think that would have been pretty incredible.
For sure.
All right. Well, hey, we were still remembered how to do this. Which is really talk out of our asses and not really know what the hell we're doing, but we still got that down.
Good to see you, man. Just like riding a bicycle.
It's like riding a bicycle, except it's like riding a bicycle through rainstorm, falling 20 times, hitting everything in your body, and getting up and walking the bike home. That's kind of what it was like.
Exactly.
Well, hopefully, illnesses are done for the year. The storm of the century. My theme song for the last few weeks has been "Come Sail Away" by Styx because it felt very appropriate most of last couple of weeks out here in Los Angeles. And from the photos and videos you sent me out of the Bay Area, wasn't much different there either. So, can we officially say we're done with the drought?
I'm hoping so, man. I mean, I passed by the Crystal Springs Reservoir, and maybe 2 weeks ago I looked and I'm looking at it going, man, that's so freaking low. I've never seen it this low. I drove by it a couple of days ago and it's like it's almost overflowing. I'm like scared of it actually dumping out on the road. So I'm hoping that they call off the drought at this point.
Okay, good. Because I want to go. Well, now that I'm done with this, I want to go take a shower. I want to take an extra minute just because I feel like the drought's over. I'll get some of those body parts that I don't always get to. Why not?
Ew.
I kid. I kid. All right, brother. Well, it looks like we're almost done. Guys, gals, thank you so much for watching. It's great to be back. We're going to try and be more consistent now that all the problems are hopefully in the rearview mirror. Who would have been your ultimate 80s hard rock heavy metal band? Put it in the comments. Let us know. Love to hear your picks. Don't cheat like Lewis. You only get one vocalist, and that's it. So, anyway, thank you as always. We appreciate it. Hit the like button, hit subscribe. Lewis, my brother, take us out.
Peace out.
Thank you, guys.